Gary,
I just thought I'd
whoops.
record it. Sorry, because
Oh, that's okay.
sorry.
Um, but pinhole has gotten much more popular. When we started, you made your own camera. There wasn't such, I mean, there were maybe two people selling cameras, zero. And there was a guy in Switzerland that tried to make commercial cameras and
Yeah, Santa
failed in the
Barbara.
night. Yeah, in the night. Yeah, he still, but obviously not a huge thing. So, but now most people buy their pinhole cameras. It's a little different. So, it's a different thing. So it's not quite the community we had because it was a little more serious undertaking. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I've pinholed for a few years and never met another pinhole photographer.
Yeah.
And gosh, no, I can't think of it'll come to me. I can't try to think of the fellow that set up the original listserv, and then Greg took that over. That was, to me, was huge because finally people who had been doing pinhole all alone, literally for years, were able to have discussions with each other. I even liked the listserv in some respects because people would describe the photos that they took, and you'd really have to use your imagination. The other thing about going along with the first 2 or 3 years of Pinhole Day was that there was kind of a central location for online pinhole communication, which was Greg's Pinhole Vision site, and then the forum that he had, and that sort of that functionality, if you will, got into F295 for quite a while, and those sorts of adjuncts to pinholeday.org don't exist anymore. And even the online presence for pinholers tends to be distributed amongst several disparate groups in Facebook. And I'm not sure where I'm going with this, other than getting back to the point that, initially there was a lot of enthusiasm. And I think that there's a lot more practitioners now, but that the experience and excitement of newness and novelty and getting something going for the first time just isn't there, and we'll probably never get it back. And the more I think of it, on the whole, things are going pretty good. The site's still there. We get an occasional contribution, just enough to cover our bills. We haven't had to do a GoFundMe or do a solicitation for contributions and things like that. And I know Greg gave it a lot of thought before he passed away and built a lot of things into the website that let it sort of self-generate or perpetuate from year to year. It's like anyways, so the site prepares itself for the next year, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, sometimes when I get those emails, it's like Greg talking to me from the grave.
Yeah. Well, I remember that, sort of in the years when I was nominally the coordinating team leader, and it came out of like Greg's leadership, and I think Guy was co-leader for a year. That the time periods that Greg described were phases that we actually went through just by email communication amongst the coordinating team members. And so there's always a preparation, there's the day itself, there's the approving submissions and things like that. I'm looking at the list right out of Greg's email right now. The final day to clean up, we sort of don't do that anymore that I'm aware of. And I think that that's fine. I try and look through things and correct any typos that I find, and I usually don't find any. But Greg was real fastidious about that. The one phase that's in there is the planning preparations, and I think that, you know, that started out was just email communications. Like usually, if a pinhole day would shut down in the sense that all the submissions would be in, gallery would be closed. I think all of the coordinators ran out of steam by that time of the year. And then, you know, a month or 2 months later, in the fall, we'd start talking again about what went well this year. Is there anything that we need to change for next year? And the ideas for change just kept getting fewer and fewer. But I still think it was important to have a planning discussion and like a review of 1 year and then what we want to do for the next. I think that was very helpful to keep all of our thoughts together. Even though, you know, like the last few years, I don't remember ever saying, yeah, we got to do this, you know, and then it was any kind of a big deal to get it in.
Yeah. I can't think of ways of changing it unless there were a bunch of really enthusiastic people to do things like, again, create a YouTube channel. But again, that would be, again, I thought of that for a long time. I thought about it as a blog, but now a YouTube channel would seem to be more popular. You know, somebody to contact group leaders and, you know, do a Zoom call like this, talk to them about their experience and why they did it, and look at their particular pictures and how they, you know, just little short videos. But that's still a lot of work, and I don't want to do it. So,
Yep.
the other thing is that I'm making a point to do the equivalent of like and subscribe when I do a post on worldwide pinhole photography, not only just myself to share it to all these other pinhole groups, but to because I only post to under Worldwide Pinhole Photography Day. I don't, but we've got, I don't know how many followers do we have now. It's
and I appreciate you doing that too. I've sort of
we've got almost 10,000 followers. So,
wow.
but I could copy those to, God, there's got to be 20 pinhole sites on Facebook, easy. And a lot of them are regional too. There's Scandinavian, and I know there's a Japanese one.
Yeah, Indonesian as well.
I think that Facebook is still used. It's amazing how when we do workshops at the darkroom here, and we say, where did you hear about us? It's often the Facebook thing. Whereas, you know, I mean, in a way, you know, I'm surprised because it's not what my kids do. My kids wouldn't do Facebook. It's all sort of like TikTok and Instagram and stuff. You know, it's strange, but Facebook does seem to work still. It definitely does have a sort of way of being able to sort of communicate, especially to other groups. I mean, there's a the website. I mean, it being self-generating every year is fantastic. You know, that is superb, and it's something that, you know, it doesn't look anything too snazzy. I don't mind that. I was really sad when I decided in a way to change my website because somebody said to me, your website looks like it's been made by somebody by some pinhole photographer who doesn't know how to use Dreamweaver properly. And that's exactly what it was. It looked appalling. So my wife, Chrissy, everybody, Chrissy.
Hi, Chrissy.
The word snazzy.
Yeah, I'm snazzy, me. Get off.
Hello, everyone.
But where are you off to?
I'm going to go and
go to the
I'm
pub.
going singing.
Going singing, going to the pub.
No, I'm going singing.
Just going to the pub. They've distracted me now. I just think that I don't know. I feel, we've got the Facebook. We can publicize it this year. I know that even in Bristol alone, there's two. There's my dark room. There's another smaller dark room. We're both doing Pinhole Day stuff.
Yeah, I feel bad. Our dark room isn't.
Well, it's an issue. I mean, we've just, we don't pay rent, for God's sake. Don't even pay the full service charge. It's a long story. We had a meeting a few days ago. But when you sort of say to people, look, either it's going to go in a skip or you have to help us out here, people eventually realize the positive. That's another issue. Have you looked at alternativephotography.com? Have you looked at that?
I know it's there. I have looked at it. I haven't looked at it that much, to be honest. And I looked at it quite a bit a number of years ago, but I haven't been really paying much attention to it recently. I do remember that it was well put together and that it covered a lot of areas and that it's been very active.
It gets to a lot of people. It does have .com on it, which is a bit unnerving, but they're good people. They're trying to make it so they can afford to keep the website going.
Mm-hmm.
The other bunch of people, I'm not involved with them that much. Yeah, I just know them and I've been contacting them recently. The other bunch of people I am involved with, and in fact, I may well ask if anybody here wants to help out with it, even if it's on Zoom, is the Experimental Photography Festival in Barcelona every July. Because I'm doing a talk about, I'll need a bit of help actually, about pre-internet pinhole photographers, just because that was when people were doing their own thing, when you would have to write a letter to Eric Renner to find out who else was doing pinhole where and stuff. Paralagioli's, all the rest. It's something that it's always amazed me how people working in isolation can create so much so well. But EXP has got a lot of pinhole photographers. There's loads and loads out there. I do think you should say that there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of cameras you buy now. There's a guy in Slovenia called Ondu Pinhole, and he makes these wooden pinhole cameras by the 100, and they do 6.7, 6.9, and all the rest. And it really does me head in that people buy a pinhole camera. It just always has made me unnerved because I'm from that era. But thousands of people, they're brilliant cameras, and thousands of people,
yes.
They are really.
I started laughing. I was thinking about 3D printed cameras, which is sort of a step beyond buying a camera.
Yeah, and there's lots of them on as well. There's loads of those. There was a guy the other day, and I was trying to suggest. He went and said, "Look, what hasn't been done with pinhole? I want to make a pinhole camera." And I thought, "Oh, for God, what?" And I just thought, right, there aren't any slot shutters, or not many as far as I know, something where you get a slot pinhole. So I was waffling on about that. Hopefully he won't do anything because it sounds absolutely absurd. But, it's people.
There was actually I can't remember the fellow's name, but there was a fellow in Barcelona that maybe close to 20 years ago started making medium format slit cameras.
Oh wow, okay.
And they never really took off. And he got in touch with me because he'd seen that I'd done 2-slit camera work, 4x5. I haven't done it recently, but I was doing quite a bit of it 20 years ago.
Right.
I find that 2-slit photography to be just completely fascinating. I'm sorry I got us off track.
No, well, there's another off track I'll quickly chuck into the mix. Pinhole video, which is something I've done one pinhole video on a DSLR at Falmouth. And it's fantastic. Well, it's bizarre, but it's something that, should there be a place on Pinhole Day for people doing pinhole video? I don't know. I mean, I think that, I know that Ed in Japan does a bit.
Yes.
A bit.
Van Cleve did one a couple of years ago. about Pinhole Day.
Hey, it's something that's of a tangent, isn't it? And it's something that, like, you don't want to sort of stop creativity towards, even if it is fitting a pinhole onto sort of like, you know, £1,000 worth of Sony sort of like camera. I don't know, it doesn't do it for me, but there we go. Andy,
Well, I mean,
let's get you should say things. Can Andy say things? Andy, say things.
Andy,
don't wanna
how should
speak-
we get to the young folk?
I don't want to speak ill of the website. However, it's and the way that Greg built it to self-generate is remarkably forward thinking. But it is a little bit like taking care of a mill building. It's
Of
that
a what?
like that every time it regenerates, the web is in a different place. Browsers are in a different place. I mean, for instance, I mean, the obvious example this time was that when it regenerated all the translation, it did it with a it wasn't standard to add a byte order marker at the beginning of these files. I only learned really this afternoon did I finally get my head around how that translation system works, how it's accessing a MySQL database and creating a text file from it, and then that's what the website draws from, which is in the year of our Lord 2023, when you can generally have a pretty fast database connection, sounds insane. But where the website was 20 years ago, that made perfect sense.
Yeah.
There's I think that you're onto something about how there is something that feels very Web 1.0 in an excellent way about this whole thing. There are no ads. Nobody's trying to make any money. We're not trying to sell any cameras. It's just trying to unite people scattered all across the globe to do something that they all like to do, and then that's it. And just know that there are people across the globe. And that's great. And I want to sort of continue to celebrate that, but the website does look old.
Yes.
And I've already I didn't get as mad as everybody else. But
Thank you.
I also had like a little bit of like when whatever that guy when I first started reading the thread, I'm like, well, you try keeping this place together, asshole. All right. But and I think and on the one hand, we are the ones who are best equipped to maintain this organization, because we're the only ones who have been trying to do it. No one else has tried to usurp us. So it's up to us. And I think we're lucky in a way that we did not go full into various social media channels, because that is the idea of sacrificing everything into some sort of walled garden to ask whichever particular Bond villain you're going to give all of your data to. That's starting to recede a little bit. You're starting to see people do blogs again. You're starting to see people keeping things on their own website, and we've managed to keep pinholeday.org as a point of continuity.
Yes. It's a very good point.
But everything has gotten to a point where it's so Byzantine that I think that there aren't any opportunities for people to come into the organization of Worldwide Pinhole Photography Day and help out a little.
Yeah, what are they going to do?
Like
Yeah, that's one of the things I've been thinking about over the last few days is we still serve as a hub.
Yeah.
I mean, the main reason we're there is we're a hub for pinholers on Pinhole Day to keep the celebration going into its 23rd year. And when I think about that in relation to publicity and to expanding the efforts, I think that really getting beyond what we're doing right now, which in some respects is very little, and with a very small group of people and with very little money, is pretty fantastic. And that any publicity efforts, it's like getting the word out about Pinhole Day, I think can really happen outside of the Pinhole Day organization. That it's enough, I think it's enough for a handful of us to do what we do and keep the site running.
Can the site continue? Do you think, Andy, the site can continue, let's say, for another 5 years, 10 years, when it comes to the internet and what it does and how it works? Is it something that, you know, can keep going in the sort of way it's written and the way it's structured?
I mean, yes, and as with our hosting, it's DreamHost enforces you to move up PHP versions every once in a while, and with each major version that introduces breaking changes, and that's some work. It takes a lot to figure out this code base, because when Greg passed, he had only started explaining it to me, and so I really only have the code to try and figure out how any of it works. It would be a big undertaking to try and bring somebody else into it.
Yeah.
I've definitely had sketches of rebuilding the site almost entirely from scratch using something like a more reasonable CMS, but this site also runs super cheap. It is I mean, it's a megabyte of code and a 30 megabyte SQL database. That is a rounding error in most in most things.
Yes.
It is it's that is the whole thing with the pictures with the somewhat punitive pixel dimensions, which is something that we need to that I need to take a closer look at for this year, is less than half the size of just the code base of what I work on my day job. So and moving to something more modern would we'd get a lot of stuff for free, but it would probably be more expensive to host. And if we didn't have somebody help us with refreshing what the site looks like itself, I don't know how many, like when somebody comes along on a forum thread and says that World Out of Pinhole Day is moribund, they don't care the fact that the back end is a little nicer, other than the fact that we might be able to actually onboard some people to help with translation.
I think there is something to be said. It's rather like, you know, people now, there's a thing on the BBC the other day about how popular early digital cameras are becoming, rubbishy digital cameras. And I know that Photographers Gallery here did a sort of small photo thing with very few small JPEGs with very few sort of pixels and stuff. And maybe we need to look at the website and think, right, just keep with it, keep it for a few years, and soon people will go to it and just love the fact there's nothing else like it on the internet. There's nothing that's sort of so consistent, stays the same, is always going to work if it always can. Maybe that's a great way of looking at it. Instead of saying this is it looks bad, it's a problem, we need to say to ourselves, look, we're pinhole photographers, what do you expect? This is part and parcel of who we are, where we're from. So I quite like that. I quite like the idea of, back to the egg, the sort of looking at things in a really nice way. I mean, I don't know the computer sides of it, but the idea that it's got sort of like, you know, it's rather like, you know, the same amount of computer power the Apollo 11 had. You know, it's something like that. It's a historical thing in itself. You know, I don't know. Maybe that's a nice thing we need to look at, and all we should do is use social media to get people to understand that it's never going to go away. This is the site to upload stuff if you want to, and it's, you know, it I don't know. I quite like the idea. If somebody says, "Oh, look, this is rubbish," well, you know, get a life. This is something that's kept going for 21 years or whatever, and you know, it's still got.
It's sort of the Model T of it's the Model T of photography websites.
Yep. I mean, I you know, it was. I think as well, to suddenly change it completely, or to, let's say, you know, I think people would take on Pinhole Day. I think, you know, people would, but whether or not those organizations would be taken on by someone else in 2 or 3 years' time or something like that, we don't know. And that self-perpetuating sort of website size of stuff means it does keep going, is rather nice. I know, because I've got a computer here which is Windows 7, and all my illegal software, all my ancient versions of Photoshop and things like that, if I go to Windows 10, I won't be able to use them anymore. And that's a real pain. And it's just one of those things. I know if I go to Windows 10, I'll have to live in a different world, really. Probably one that sort of takes less than 5 minutes to start up. But so maybe we should just accept the website's like it is. It does a purpose. The purpose works quite delightfully. I think it does. I like it. I quite like some aspects of it. Maybe we need to, you know, maybe a few links to a different places or something like that. Or maybe we don't worry with it because we haven't got the people power anyway. And what we do is we say, right, you know, we do an event to promote it, perhaps, rather like the whole world video thing where people go around the world talking about one particular picture they love. Doesn't have to be their own picture, could be someone else's. We promote it whenever we can and see how it goes. I mean, I was just surprised today that a small community darkroom in Bristol, you could say a competitor, if anybody actually competes in the in the darkroom world, is doing a Pinhole Day event. And I just thought, whoa,
Wow.
that's fantastic. You know, that's within sort of like 2 miles away from where I live. There's another one where my darkroom is, or our darkroom is. What do you think? Do you think we should just sit with it? I over waffle, so I'll shut up.
Yes, I think we should just sit with it. Again, the way it works, the complaints revolved around participation of a group, and it's like, okay, we don't know what we would have you do. We're, you know, so that one is, and I think I can explain that. People ask me what they can do to help. I'm going to say, share, you know, you don't need me to do publicity. You've got Mark Zuckerberg, you know, or what's his name? Is that? But you know, you've got Facebook and you've got the social media. You do it. Just crowd share the publicity. The other complaint is, you know, people talk about the website and they're talking about the appearance of the website. They're not talking about how it works or what it. Somebody said something about, you know, it's complicated to contribute. Well, no, it's not. It's really straightforward. So changing the look of it, I don't know. Andy, we've talked about this a little bit, but you know, change the typeface to Helvetica black for the main banner and Helvetica light for everything else, and flush, make it all flush left. In terms of structure, web page structure, it's a menu item with a wide column down the left side and a very narrow column on the right side. Can we just change, the text is in a box. You don't need to put, text won't leak out if you don't put a box with a line around it. So if it's possible to just change some of those, again, taking the same elements, but put them in a little different typeface and with, again, fewer archaic elements like boxes around things.
Yeah. I mean, another thing with that of the website is people shouldn't be looking at the website. It's the pictures. And it's odd how, let's say, people are looking at the cover rather than the actual information.
Well, people have said that it doesn't matter what content you get in there. People see that homepage and then they go, "Oh, that's not something I want to get involved in." That's what people have criticized. And again, your response is right. Well, it's fine. Go to the gallery. Look at the gallery. It's about the pictures.
Yeah. I'm feeling a bit more optimistic about it all, being honest. I haven't done much. I do my workshop. I try and get as many people to do it as possible. I was actually talking about today, there's two ways. There's either charging 40 quid a head, which is what this other darkroom's going to be doing to do pinhole photography, which is a bit weird. Or there's basically saying, right,
I charge my workshop is $125, so that's over twice as much.
Well, that's not bad. I'm going to try and get about 50 or 60 people and try and do it for nothing because I'm stupid. But it's
the museum. It's not me.
Yeah, no, that's it. It's interesting. This whole. It's rather like, I know that alternativephotography.com will promote Pinhole Day. I know that EXP will promote Pinhole Day. I know that that's the experimental photography lot.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole load. I think it is still something really quite big. Pinhole photography is a big thing. The fact that people putting pinholes on the DSLRs and also buying the cameras is a bit of a letdown, but not much we can really do, I think, with that. It's just almost, a bit of a sadly commercialized sort of way of doing things,
Yeah, it's interesting to think in years past. I know Lomography was doing Pinhole Day events, and I think they even had a gallery for a few years. And I'm trying to, is it Corvus, the Microsoft digital library or whatever?
Oh yeah, they had those paper cameras. Oh God, those were awful.
Well, they were trying to do some sort of Pinhole Day promotion. Excuse me, back in the, maybe 15 years ago. I'll throw out another stray thought, and I don't know hope it doesn't sound. Anyways, I'll just say it. When I first was being the coordinating team leader, Greg was sort of filling me in on what needed to be done. One of the first things he said was, "This site absolutely needs to be rewritten." He thought it should be thrown out and completely rewritten from scratch. It's just that he wouldn't be able to do it. There it is. He really was not interested in keeping that website around and wanted to back away from early on, like from in the early 2000s and even up into later times, like maybe 2012 or 13. really didn't want to be the webmaster. But there was nobody else that we ever found that could do the work. I feel bad that I didn't ask him to teach me some of the more technical stuff. I think it would have been fun, but that was my mistake for not trying to pick up a little of that.
Well,
So anyways,
yes,
the idea of the website being a bit archaic and needing to be replaced goes back a long way. The other thing about the website is that people gripe about it, but I think 80 or 90% of the critical functionality of running the site is all behind the scenes, and it's really something that viewers never see. Like all of our approvals for events, the NLS system for the languages, and how that whole thing was structured. Yeah, people don't see that, but it's really necessary to keep the site going behind the scenes. So I don't know, Andy, you're a lifesaver.
Hey,
I just looked at alternative photography, and their gallery submissions are limited to 700 pixels square.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think we can be a little bit more generous.
Well, again,
Nowadays.
technically, how do you do that? Rather than right now, it displays a 700 pixel image.
Right.
And of course,
because
depending on your browser, it's going to do that for your device. But Tom's idea of taking that small image and clicking it to go full screen, that sounds like.
Yeah. And it is I've been letting the perfect be the enemy of the good in past years of with this sketching out this larger Drupal based project to replace the whole site. I have been not doing modernizations that could have happened, and so there are certainly improvements that we could have for Pinhole Day 2023. We can have bigger pictures.
Mhm.
I don't think that it would be a bad idea to try and look with clear eyes as to at the submission process. I mean, one thing that is great about the that is great and pure about the website is that we don't hold on to any data of anyone's. Like, you don't even need to give a real name. Who cares? But that means that once they hit that once somebody hits submit, they are totally rent from that picture. There's until we go into the back end, it is there is no connection between the photographer and the photo anymore from what we did. And so that's when we've had why we have that big thing at the beginning that's like, are you submitting on behalf of a group? Are you're doing something else? And like, so there are certainly opportunities for making it a little bit easier for people, especially because we don't have to deal with the sort of bandwidth concerns that I think a lot of were the reason for a lot of these decisions. Everybody's got, like, I mean, you shouldn't be like greedy with people's data, but it's something we should be able to do better with. And those improvements don't need to wait until the website does not need to remain perfectly frozen until we replace it. There are improvements that can be made.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, I'm gonna Andy, I'll ask you, since we're sort of live here for a change, using email. I just wanted to throw out again the idea of having a digital capture flag on the submission form and in the selection criteria.
Right.
I think that would be really helpful, because I would love to be able to filter out digital images, or make galleries of digital images. I don't like the idea of digital pinhole. I've only done it once or twice myself, but I do think that to have pinhole be as broad as possible, that we should include digital images, and that might just be the hook to get people from digital into analog. or into building their own pinhole camera. So hey, that's
Absolutely
really
agree.
cool on a body cap. Let me try a soup can or a coffee tin or something.
I
Yeah.
actually, sorry, Nick, go for it.
I'm not all that concerned about digital. I mean, if I was going to have a flag, I would rather have them choose that it's if it's a home handmade camera rather than knowing whether it was digital. But
That's a good idea.
again, to me, that's it's pretty clear when they say what their camera was, whether it's digital or not. So, but and filtering them out, I don't know. That just sounds kind of weird.
If it's easy, yeah, and if it's easy to do, it's easy to do. And if there's any amount of effort, that I certainly don't want to push the idea anymore.
The galleries are almost wholly independent from one another. And so I mean they're their own table. They're actually their own subdirectories. There's no it is a refreshingly direct website when you're looking at it on the server side. There's no routing. There's a index.html at a particular path. And so being able to add new columns like a flag for digital or a flag for homemade cameras, it should be pretty reasonable to do. And we can add that to the submission process, and then if it feels weird, then we just don't add it as filtering. It's just a data point that never gets used for anything.
Can we, I mean, could we add pinhole video? Even if it's, let's say, a YouTube link or something. What does anybody think of that?
You can already do that in the comments.
Okay. I teach when I do my workshops at the uni and stuff, and often other places. I do DSLR pinhole. I don't have a DSLR camera. I never have had a DSLR camera, and I still teach it because it seems there was a thing which was done recently by somebody, and I've been copying it. And all it is just getting a flower, like whatever flower, and just putting it on the camera as it's on its back, and then putting the thing onto 1 second exposure using a flash, and it goes off. And they're beautiful. They're soft, really close-up pictures of the stamen and stuff inside a flower, and they're the same sort of pictures you get in rubbishy hotels and stuff on the wall. And it's not pinhole photography, but it's sort of painting with light. There's something strange about it. It's not your let's try and take a picture through a pinhole which is 5 foot off the ground and looks exactly the same, but it's blurred out focus and a bit pants. It is exploring, and this old new tech, they're using it in a creative, non-digital camera way, rather like using a mobile phone for illuminating photo paper, or using mobile phones to sort of see stuff in inverse, or ways of being able to bring it in where it becomes a useful tool rather than a distraction. And I don't want to. I'd love a DSLR, could be quite nice, but I'm not going to go out and buy one. But it is still something that people aren't using it creatively, but you can. It just means don't use it like a camera. Use it as a image recording device, I suppose, rather like you can make pinhole cameras out of scanners. The same sort of thing. But you got to somehow get out of this DSLR head, sort of like, all that shit. I hate viewfinders. Biggest head fuck I've got is viewfinders. I think viewfinders are the work of the devil. They're awful. All these stupid pinhole cameras people make, and they've got little lines on, or viewfinders where you can see what the angle of view is. I don't want to know. Sorry, it's my little gripe. I've always hated that. I don't want to know what's going to happen. It's pants.
Yeah, I occasionally burst out laughing Then I catch myself so I don't embarrass myself or anybody else. But I think it's so funny to see people looking at cameras through a viewfinder and taking a picture of themselves with a camera in front of their face in a mirror.
Mm.
Oh well, that's just me.
Well, I'm
Oh,
a
I
big
was gonna
fan of my
mention, this is-
viewfinders, and I mean, I don't have an optical viewfinder, but my lines on my cameras, I want the edge of that frame to be where I want the edge of the frame to be. So,
Yeah.
yes, I like the surprises and all the great serendipity of pinhole, but
I use
I
actually use
want to make a composition the way I want to make a composition.
I use viewing lines a lot, especially on like my zero image camera and on the pinhole blender. And I found with the pinhole blender, it's really necessary to use those lines in order to get the images to meld together correctly.
Right, I've got about another quarter of an hour, 10 minutes.
Okay.
What, I mean, have we decided that, like, yeah, we're going for it again, same website?
Basically, yeah.
Right.
I think the only
2023, absolutely.
The only thing I can think of is some of the little technical things that we talked about that would be easy for Andy to implement. Otherwise, you know, in terms of maybe a next step, would be just some kind of a response to that Photrio thread.
Yes, I was going to make a response, and my basic points are going to be that it's not moribund, it's just that we have transferred the publicity role to what seems to be the 2020, mode. And if you want to help share and post, and put it on your photography club's site, and
Organize an
that
event.
sort of thing. And that as far as the appearance of the website goes, it's a functional website. It does what you want, and we're looking at trying to improve the resolution of the picture you can look at. And the third thing is, if you're worried about quality of the gallery, post your picture. I don't know. It was funny. I always had this idea that in the first couple of years we were all trying to just outdo each other. And then I looked at the first two galleries, and no, that wasn't the case. Some of us barely got an exposure. But anyway, and there's certain things, again, that whole idea of most of us are into pinhole because it's like almost disbelief that it works at all. And so giving that experience and sharing that experience, well, it's tough to do that and get too many skills in it. So yes, there's going to be a lot of amateurish looking, not very good photographs in it. And without writing this thing too long, I want to say, don't just look, pick a group, look at it. And you can see that from one group to the other, you've got these variations. And it's always fun to look in a group where you'll have, 20 pictures of the pavement in the town square, and then one kid takes a really great photograph.
Yeah.
And so looking in those groups and trying to find that stuff can make going through the gallery more fun. And it's not just I want to see the best pinhole photography, but you can see and explore how people discover it.
Another important point.
So I was going to put some language to that point in there, and that's about it.
Yeah, I think another point, and you can decide if you want to put it in or not, would be just the egalitarian nature of the gallery, is that we consider every image and every participant and equal, so that there are some brilliant professional photographers that post stuff, and there's kids maybe in 4th grade that post stuff.
Right. Again,
have all there.
that's
And to
one of our
display them
bedrock-
next to one another.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of our bedrock things to keep it focused. That if you let people post lots of pictures, they just slather things up there. And also from a photography educator's point of view, making them look at those 5 photographs or however many they have and pick the best one is, is a good pedagogical approach.
Mhm.
Not that, but it does keep the focus on the day. And I, of course, actually it's gotten tough for me to get enthused because I go out and yesterday afternoon, I shot 8 photographs in Green Bay in a little under 45, 50 minutes. So that's,
It's vastly more than I've done recently, to tell you the truth.
I've gotten a little bit obsessive lately.
I've been getting into watergrams today, which is like you're getting a bit of paper underwater and then you get an angled flash hitting it. And we did a workshop today of where 10 people came and like we did mad flash watergram pictures, just really of like, looks like frozen water ripples sort of thing. Absolutely mad, but the amount of stuff you can do with that is really fun. I'm just about to put them on. I've just filtered it down from about 30 to about 10. Okay, I mean, I think it's really nice. I think it's bursts of optimism, because there's nothing worse than somebody moaning and sort of saying, oh, blah, blah, blah. Because, I mean, it's a tribute to the people who started it all and stuff. It's lovely that the website can self-perpetuate and keep going. I wasn't sure if, like, suddenly it was coming towards the point at which it would no longer be supported or something like that. I don't know my website stuff. I got Wix website and that's it. So, I mean, that's really nice. Thinking in terms of the publicity and stuff, I mean, I'll try and publicize it to whoever, wherever, with the social media sides of stuff.
Justin, you ran through a list of photographic organizations and websites that you thought would support it the other day. If you would make an effort to contact them directly, I don't know, by their contact forms and whatever, that would be helpful. I mean, I don't mind doing the social media stuff. It's fun. But an email for me, let's say your name recognition would have more impact to those organizations than mine would.
I think sort of like it can have an impact sometimes in a way that isn't that one would necessarily want.
Well, anyway, but if you would take on that every year to try to throw some kind of an email or their contact list to these organizations like Alternative Photography, and you mentioned several others, who knows, maybe we would get a story or two. We usually do get a story or two from somebody every year.
I think we get the experimental photography thing in Barcelona, and it's something else because I supposedly I'm doing a few things there, one of which is going to be a talk about the early pinhole photographers, that were going before anybody else knew about it, really, yeah. Or Willie-Ann Wright, who's still with us. I think she's 98, isn't she? Maybe 99, not sure. But like all the early pinholers, most of which were in America, Paolo Ghioli, Dominique Strubon, all those, key people. It would be nice if we do often we do these talks, yeah, and there's an audience, but also they're recorded, and there's also an online audience for EXP. And I may well get in touch with, like, if you want to be part of this, just to sort of like help me along, because otherwise I'll just say the wrong stuff.
Well, I think a program like you did last year would be fine, except before Pinhole Day.
Yeah,
And
that's the-
and I don't know what happened, but I don't know how many people got to watch that, because I registered and I logged in and I can't remember what the error message was, but it was like that was it.
yeah. No, it was. I mean, it was a mad thing that sort of like suddenly cropped up, and we made a bit of money for Ukraine with it all, and it was to sort of celebrate that the Ukraine pinhole exhibition that was still happening in Kiev.
Yeah.
Shall we try and do something before Pinhole Day? So let's say early April, where we find pinhole photographers around the world, and each of us for 5 minutes, or each of them for 5 minutes, talks about something.
Yeah, I mean exactly what you did last year, except
Yeah.
a new group.
Maybe we talk
And-
about a picture rather than, or maybe we pick a picture that's influenced us from somebody else, rather than me going on and on and on about me. Which how much
It
I
wouldn't be a pin.
it's
It
been
wouldn't be a
done.
pinhole photograph that if I talked about that,
Um,
or it'd be one of my own pinhole photographs,
yeah.
not somebody else's pinhole photograph.
Okay, let's get back to that, but I think we should, and it's another way of promoting that to promote Pinhole Day. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got,
Not to cut in, but I have another meeting that I need to go to.
and
Okay.
it's lovely to
Being
see
gainfully
you.
employed.
You're far too young. Stop it.
No, he's not.
All
Oh,
right.
that's okay then.
Godspeed,
Bye,
gentlemen.
Andy.
I'll
Cheers,
talk to you
Andy. Thanks.
sometime soon, hopefully.
Yay.
Thanks a lot,
Yep.
Andy.
Thanks for everything.
Glad he's gone. Okay, let's try and do a whole world thing. I'm sure that we can still get New Zealand involved. I'm sure we can get Hong Kong sent a video recording. So Tofu. Ed in Japan was up at 4 a.m. It's about time he did the same again. And if we know of other people, let's email. I mean, I've got this long duration Zoom thing with the Real Photography Company. They'd be into promoting it. And can we get our heads around some, not so much new people, but different people who might want to partake, who'd be good with it? Because I think,
That's a good idea.
yeah, because you know people that I don't, and etc. And if we go, round, just do round the world again, it might be quite funny. It's quite weird. I was stunned it worked. My word, I was relieved when it finished. I remember just sort of going, because I didn't know it'd go on so long. I think that Wayne Bell just sort of like got a bit carried away. God bless him. No, it was funny, but yeah, let's try and do that again. Try and do it in early April to promote Pinhole Day in late April. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of excuse me. Good. 2 or 3 quick questions, I hope. One was Nick, if you put something out on Photrio, I think as a response, I think that would be great. And for Photrio and in the Facebook site, I've sort of been holding off on putting any posts out there because I think you're doing a good job with it, and I sort of don't want to sort of take away the momentum that you've got going with that. But if you don't mind, I might putting things out there every once in a while. That would be great.
No, I mean I do it. I'm starting to worry about repeating myself, because it's always the solstice and perihelion, and well, I can't wait till I always enjoy on Valentine's Day to post Zernicke's statement from 2001, and
Yeah.
but if anybody else has a clever thought, go ahead. The more the merrier, and I mean, just for I don't know if this is any measure of impact. but since I posted about the whole world YouTube, it's doubled the viewership since yesterday.
Really? That's fantastic.
Let's try and do that. If I find a date, I mean, my kids are all doing exams and stuff, but I will find.
Well, an important thing is recording it, not only having it live, but recording it and distributing it this way.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you had it on YouTube.
Yeah,
Because when I saw it, there was like, oh, this is going to disappear in 2 weeks, and sure enough, 2 weeks it was gone.
Yeah.
So
no, I recorded it and then put it on YouTube, but because there was supposedly going to be somebody helping. When I've done these international things before, and I've done a few with EXP, there's always been somebody else doing the main thing, somebody else doing something else, and it's all been quite organized. This was just, and my friend Ruth turned up sort of like about an hour late, and I didn't even remember to record it on full screen. It was like, or viewer, speaker view. It was busy, but we can do better. And I think it's an interesting thing. I think it's quite interesting. I mean, I personally really love some of those people, from Toto in Hong Kong to our New Zealand pals, to Mexico, Oaxaca in Mexico, who are just the most gorgeous people in the history of mankind. It shows the world wide possibilities, and so I think that's what we want. If we can find people, in some great people in mad places, that'd be great fun. Yeah, to show the international sort of the fact that it's accessible to everybody, really.
Well, yeah. Again, I thought it was interesting last year.
Yeah,
especially
it went well.
The variety of approaches that people came up with was pretty spectacular.
Yeah, and it's still going. I don't think, I rather like with Valerie Burke's digital stuff, I just see some of her things and I just think, whoa, you're still glorying in this sort of like, it's digital, it's digital pinhole, but it's still glorying in discovering, this painting with light, really. Anyway, we know about that stuff. Okay, my little thing here is saying, give up hope, all ye who don't have a charger put into their laptop.
So we do this again.
Let's do this again. If I pick I'll throw out a date by email. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe when we do it, and maybe it should be on a Sunday, because if it's a Sunday a few weeks before Pinhole Day, that might remind people. Maybe it needs to be 4 weeks, but we haven't got much time then.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that I'm a bit full on with stuff, and I got chucked something else today, which is basically an application for some fund. We have to apply for funds, and we get the funds, we can do the teaching. It's a weird thing. But I whatever we can do, we'll do it and then publicize it. What I think we shouldn't do is too much. Yeah. I think the fact the website carries on is great. The fact that we think it's fun as it is, it's a novelty. It represents what, how we are in a lot of ways.
And anybody can help publicize it without having to go through the website or the coordinators.
Yeah. No, I've got a few. As I say, there's a few people who I'll go there. But if we have something to tag it onto, so not just the day, but some other event beforehand, that'd be fun. If anybody else wants to host it, that's good as well. But I don't mind if people want me. But I just waffle. I just go on and on and on. I'll get some gaffer tape.
I forgot I had this in my desk drawer. I actually did like 15 or 20-minute workshops with this thing and just called it a pinhole spy device. And I did it with like 3rd and 4th graders and would say, okay, especially if you're nearsighted, you can look through the hole like this and it'll bring things into focus. And we just proved that your eyes that this is a viewing device and that your eyes are lenses and have to focus.
That's good. I've just done a website called Experimental Photography in the Classroom, and it's got that, but made out of a bit of aluminium with a pinhole in. Yours,
Yeah,
looks
that's what
fine.
this is too. It's a aluminum, and I just taped it onto the
Yeah.
taped the aluminum onto the.
You can
mat board.
use it with mobile phones. You can say, right, how close can you focus to a mobile phone, and then you use the hole, and you can get so much closer, and then go on about the history stuff and how, you know, it's how Inuits and all the rest, all that Renners stuff.
Yeah, it's another good idea.
Um,
Oh, this is a coincidence that was just too funny. The building that our studio was in is on one of the commercial floors in a art space building. So there's a few arts related organizations in there, and another dark room in the basement. There's 2 dark rooms in one building. But all the live work artists are in a state of rebellion against the organization that's run the St. Paul Art Crawl for the last 30 years.
right.
And so all the artists in that building have decided to run their own event rather than being part of the official St. Paul Art Crawl, which I think is kind of unfortunate and sad. There it is, and it started out, that whole thing. You know, I know a lot of people that live there. I've known them for many years, and there's always been perennial griping about the St. Paul Art Crawl or SPAC group should do this or should do that. And now they're finally breaking away. But it just reminded me of the griping that I fell into and with this Fotrio discussion.
Oh well, let's respond to the guy, whoever it was.
Well, it's the whole thread that's,
Yeah, haven't looked at
and
it. I'll say it just
and I'm
sounds
talking about blathering on and on. I will probably, it'll be a few paragraphs.
Mhm.
okay. Look, I'm gonna have to get going. Lovely to see you both.
Yeah, so good to see you guys too.
Be afraid about
Yeah,
it's
yeah. Tom is the only, Tom and Earl Johnson, the only pinholers I've ever met.
Yeah, and with social media, it's so funny. It's like the League of Upper Midwest Pinholers was maybe 8 or 10 people that would get together once a year, and now that Phil Anderson put it into a Facebook group, we've got 80 or 90 people in it from all over the world.
Yeah. So.
Right. Okay. Well done. 2023. Here it comes. And we'll get a whole world thing sorted at the beginning of April. And yeah, let's see what happens.
Sounds good. Thanks for hosting this, Justin, and letting us use the extended Zoom.
It's fine. No, this is that's really cool. It just took me about 10 minutes to work out what the code was and stuff. I'm hopeless of internet stuff. I'm hopeless with anything high tech. But you know, there we go. Okay, thank you, people.
All right.
I'll see you soon.
Take care. Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.